Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All of our guests today, including Elliotte Friedman, standing by, sponsored by Basant Motors. Due to popular demand, Basant has continued on with its anniversary sale. Get huge discounts and great promotions with your next vehicle. Get all the details at BasantMotors.com. Just before we get to Elliotte, Lloyd from Burnaby. Hey, I stayed till, this is Delaney's OK Tire and Langley inbox. Hey, I stayed until the end like we all did in the 70s for the 3-star selection.
Oh, yeah.
We mentioned that we don't hear programs anymore. What happened to the 3-star selection? As a kid, it was like a highlight. You stayed until the end. You didn't leave early like you did Saturday.
Okay, but in the Coliseum in the 80s, I stayed for the 3-star selection. Tony Tanti.
I don't think you did. From Hockey Night in Canada and the 32 Thoughts podcast, as is the case every second Monday, we're joined by Elliotte Friedman, who has never in his life ever left a game early as a fan. Right, Elliotte?
That is true. I do not do that.
Yeah, it was an embarrassing moment Saturday at BC Place Lions playoff game, and Rick left with about 4 or 5 minutes left. In the CFL.
Wait, so why?
Beat the traffic, Elliotte. There's 50,000 people in the downtown core.
Rick, that's so sad.
No, it's
I can't
not.
tell you.
Yeah. Elliotte, they're up by 20 points. The game was over, Elliotte. Come on, man.
So my question, Elliotte, to Rick.
Oh my God! By the way, my poppy fell off. I feel bad. I'm seeing you guys wearing your poppies, and I just want to make it very clear mine fell off. I like to wear it. I'm sorry about that.
You know what, Elliotte? We've had a text into the Delaney's OK Tire and Langley inbox talking about that very thing.
Yeah,
that it's hard to keep poppies on.
It's hard.
There's an invention. Yeah. There's an invention waiting to happen there. Okay, moving on.
Well, you know what the problem is, Don, is that I've tried to wear a permanent one before. But people reached out to me and they pointed out that if you get the permanent one, that means you don't make the donations every year, so you shouldn't get the permanent one.
Okay.
So it's very smart. I thought I was being intelligent when once again I was being terminally stupid.
Yeah. Well, shows you what I know. I didn't even realize there was a permanent one. So you're excused. Canucks hosting Edmonton tonight. Elliotte, I know you had, and Vancouver fans are talking a lot about this, some very positive things to say about the 8-2-1 Vancouver Canucks. What's the word outside of Vancouver regarding what's going on with this hockey team?
Look, I think everybody's impressed. Your best players are playing great. Like, you know, every single, like, if you were awarding the awards right now, Demko would be right in the Vezina conversation. Hughes would be right in the Norris conversation. Pettersson would be right in the Hart conversation, never mind the Art Ross. You know, in addition to that, Miller's playing really well. But also, I mean, your depth players, they're not scoring, but the one thing about depth players is it's not the worst thing if they don't score, but it is the worst thing if they get caved in. And you look at that, for example, the Cole-Friedman pairing and things like that. They're not getting caved in. They're holding their own. And you know that Roenick has played really well. So when you have a situation where your best players are playing great and your depth players, even if they're not scoring, they're not getting caved in. They're holding their own on the ice. A lot of good things are going to happen, and it's very clear that your players have bought in. You know, we had a segment on one of our games. Dave Amber has this segment. It's awful. It's called Burning Questions, where he asks us to give our hot takes. And, you know, he said, like, who's most responsible for the Canucks' success? And Justin Bourne picked Demko, and Nick picked Tocchet, and I picked Pettersson. And then we realized when it was over, none of us picked Hughes, which was insane. But I think it shows you that there are a lot of people who've done a lot of great work this year, and everybody's pulling in the same direction. And that's what it takes for a team to be successful.
A lot of people will say a lot of the success has to do with the Rick Tocchet. Do you remember what his rep was when he was coaching other teams, Tampa Bay and Arizona, Elliotte?
Well, when he got into Tampa Bay, it was just a difficult situation.
Yeah.
So, that wasn't set up for success. But you know, the one thing about Tocchet is that when he was there, he took over in the middle of the year, and he made the decision to bench Steven Stamkos. I think it was 3 times. And at the time, Stamkos was very unhappy. But years later, Stamkos looked back and said he understood. He was putting him in the gym. He was telling him to watch how the game was played. And they have a good relationship. And Stamkos said, I didn't like it at the time, but it turned out to be a good thing for me. Rick, when he coached in Pittsburgh, he had the reputation as being the Kessel whisperer, the guy who understood Kessel and got him to play. And that wasn't always easy. Kessel's a bit of a different guy. And you get into a situation where with him, you have to make him comfortable to make him perform at his best. And he was able to do that. And Arizona, look, we all know about Arizona's issues, but the players really liked him there. They thought, the thing about Tocchet is he can get along with everybody. Are you an easygoing guy? Yeah, he can get along with you. Are you a different guy? Yeah, he can get along with you. All the different personality types, he tries to understand them. And what he demands in return is that you play hard. He can put up with mistakes. You got to show up in shape. You got to compete. You got to practice hard. And if you do that, he'll have time for you. And I really do believe, guys, that most players, even from the best to the guys who are hanging on in the NHL, they just want to know, A, what their role is, and B, be convinced that whoever's in charge of them is going to make them better and push the team to be better. And Tocchet has always been a guy who gets along with almost everybody. And I think that's really important as a coach.
Elliotte, one more on the Canucks. Last Friday, you said they're pretty aggressive trying to work the phones. Garland's really quiet. Do you think they're still out there trying to? They got to get some cap space, Elliotte, if they want to sign Ethan Bear. But what are you hearing on the trade market?
Well, I still think they're looking around. I think the one thing, though, now, Rick, is that, and I was actually talking about this with someone before I came on the show, because I actually do try to do research and ask what the Canucks are up to before I come on. And, the one thing that someone said to me is it's going so well for them right now, they don't want any noise. Do I think they're still looking around? Yeah, I think they're still looking around. I think they're trying to be proactive. But as you guys said, the team is 8-2-1, and everything's going really nicely. And I just don't think they want anybody thinking that they have to worry about something that isn't the Edmonton Oilers tonight. So I think that's part of the situation here. They're calling, but they're also not trying. It's easy to create a media distraction in Vancouver. You don't want to create self-inflicted ones, and I think they're really aware of that.
Well, for the first time,
let the media members fight with each other, not the team and the media this time.
You're going to get it for that. Listen, for a first time in a long
Team Rick.
Yeah, Team Rick. I know you're Team Rick. Listen. The tire fires are not in Vancouver. They're all over the rest of Canada. But take me to Calgary, because I'm going to be fascinated to see what they do with their UFAs. Tanev, Zaradov, Hanifin, Lindholm. What's going on here? How do you see all these guys moving in Calgary?
Well, I if you were to ask me today, I'd say yes. But I think the thing is, things can always change. Number one, I think the Flames have begun making some phone calls around, just gauging the market. I don't think anything is imminent, but I think they're calling and just saying, okay, if this guy's available, what are you thinking? And, the reason I always say to be careful about making any sure pronouncements is that, Hanifin was really close to the deal, and it changed when they started losing a few games. So I think you always have to remember that things can change, and what was true yesterday may not be true tomorrow. So that's careful. But I think they're calling around. I think they're gauging the market, and I think they have three defensemen there, as you mentioned, never mind Lindholm. You could see teams like Edmonton, although I don't know if they could ever make a trade with them, like Toronto, like Vancouver, like other teams in the league who are good, being interested in some of those players.
Okay, we just talked about the Flames. Oilers in town tonight. How do you explain their struggles, and what about Jay Woodcroft's job status?
Well, I do think it is a little bit crazy to talk about Woodcroft's job status. The guy has been a coach for one full season. He came midway through 2 years ago, and he coached last year. And he's coached 10 games this year, and his winning percentage is above 65. What are you going to do that's better than that? Now, if there's something behind the scenes where he's somehow being...
We lose Elliotte there.
Team or something's going on, that's a different thing. But based on wins and losses, based on wins and losses, how are you going to find a guy who's better than 65%? So, like I said, if he's doing something that is sabotaging the team behind the scenes, or he's not listening, or there's something going on where I'm not aware about, I just don't understand. Now, I think the one thing the Oilers are going to have to do is, look, they're not getting saves, and they're also very leaky. Now, you have to fix the leaky, because if you don't, you can't win in this league. But Don and Rick, one thing I do wonder about is, are the Oilers going to have to get to a point where they're going to have to sit down and say, we might have to do something a little painful here in terms of what it might take us to give up to fix our goaltending? Because you have to, if your team and your organization aren't convinced they have the good enough goaltending, you can't win.
We've been hearing that for a long, long time. We'll see what happens. Oilers and Canucks tonight. Elliotte, thanks so much for this. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Take care. Have a good night.